You're listening to the Frame of Mind podcast.
Shall we begin?
I'm not in the right frame of mind.
Okay, welcome back to the podcast. And by welcome back, I mean we've done our first one and this is our second. And we're so excited.
This is such a great movie. I'm so excited we picked Silence of the Lambs.
Silence of the Lambs is my jam. Okay, so this is the podcast where we discuss mental health in cinema and television and how it is portrayed. What did they get right? What did they get wrong? And what we feel you need to know about mental health. I am Jeffrey Jones. I'm a screenwriter as well as a professor of screenwriting, and I'm joined by my brother, a general and forensic psychiatrist, Josh Jones. Today we're going to look at Silence of the Lambs. Like we said, last week we talked about depression and suicide, and this week we're having a little more fun talking about psychopaths and serial killers. I'm hoping that not a ton of our audience are psychopaths, but if you are, Josh is way tastier than I am. Just throwing that out there.
All right, guys, and the information expressed in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. Nothing expressed in this podcast is medical advice, and no doctor-patient relationship is created. And of course, folks, if you or someone you know is suicidal or experiencing a severe mental health crisis, please call or text the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline number 988. Jeff, get us kicked off.
Yeah, so before we do get started, though, I wanted to briefly mention our sponsor for this week, Fool's Gold Fava beans. Great for a snack or any adventure, whether at the top of the Andes Mountains or having a dinner with a dining on a census taker. Fool's Gold Fava beans pairs with any organ meat from the kidney to the liver. So enjoy today with a nice Chianti. Thank you, Fool's Gold Fava beans, for being a sponsor.
And CEO Louis Friend.
That's right. Okay, so Josh, answer me this. Because I want to set some terms here. What is the difference between a psychopath and a sociopath?
Okay, there's been a lot made about this in popular culture. From a psychiatric perspective, neither psychopath or sociopath is actually a term that we use as a diagnosis. We use a diagnosis called antisocial personality disorder.
But I get to use that term because I'm a normal, right? Like
you're a normie, yeah. So I think for best purposes, people try to say a psychopath is like an extreme sociopath. Both a psychopath and a sociopath, whichever term you use, is someone who has some inherent flaw or inherent defect where they can't feel empathy towards others. They have no problem, absolutely no prohibition in trampling on the rights of others. And this is to different degrees. Your garden variety sociopath, of which many folks in prison have antisocial personality disorder and could colloquially be called sociopaths. You know, they commit petty crimes. They do lots of stuff. They just don't care. When you start crossing different boundaries, as we see in Silence of the Lambs, towards impinging on somebody's sexual rights, impinging on somebody's right to live, those are different levels of sociopathy, bordering into psychopathy. But for all intents and purposes, they're synonymous. Psychopath, I think, just kind of sounds scarier to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. And you could be a sociopath without ever committing what we would consider a violent crime. Like there could just be sociopaths who just choose not to hurt. Not that they're empathetically making that choice. They're just not choosing that.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Okay. And sociopaths don't feel empathy towards other people, but it doesn't mean that the laws and the penalties that go along with breaking those laws don't have impact and don't constrain how people think and how people act.
Okay,
yeah,
so
laws keep us in check. Laws keep all humanity in check. They really, really are designed to keep in check people with sociopathic tendencies, and we all have sociopathic tendencies. Everybody, to some degree. I mean, you look at some law. I mean, who has not sped? You're fine breaking a law if you're speeding, but to what degree do you want to impinge on other people's rights?
Yeah, but
that's when you start getting into sociopathy.
If you don't put grocery carts back, though, you're a sociopath. You're just a bad person.
Yeah, that's my test for whether or not you should be allowed to continue to exist in our society.
I agree. Okay, so obviously Silence of the Lambs is about 2 serial killers. So what makes someone a serial killer?
Yeah, by definition, a serial killer is someone who kills more than one person in order. Not a spree. We should distinguish it from a spree killer. And look, the FBI and other agencies have a whole bunch of different classifications for folks. I'm not 100% expert on those, but it is important distinguishing serial killer, somebody who kills people in kind of an order, versus a spree killer. And definitely in our era of mass shootings, those are spree killers. People who go out and do them all at once. A serial killer is typically more methodical, and that there are some characteristics that link a lot of serial killers together. And you'll see you hear about profiling some serial killers, and we'll talk a little bit about profiling when we get to that in the movie. But they tend to be more methodical. Serial killers tend to almost always have some kind of psychosexual component to their killing, and they portray that in Silence of the Lambs quite well. Not everybody, and this is what's really tough. You can't paint all serial killers with a broad brush. We don't really know what tips somebody over from being a sociopath or a psychopath into being a psychopathic killer. We don't.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question, so I won't ask. Okay, and I do want to get to
I already answered it.
You're so far ahead of me, man, like usual. I do want to get to the movie, but but so one thing I want to ask you about, because I think about this all the time. I think that like normal people, 90% of people probably couldn't commit a murder or couldn't kill someone unless like their life was in danger, a family member's life was in danger. There's a psychological block to us killing another person. And then you have serial killers or people that have no empathy, who don't have any problem with that. But there is this big gap in the middle where you see that someone killed one person. You see these weird cases on TV and in the news where someone all of a sudden killed their roommate. Those aren't serial killers, but they're also not normal people. Like, how do you... It feels like there's this big gap in the middle. What's happening there?
Well, I think what's happening is you're using the term normal really carelessly. I mean, who the hell knows what normal is? Seriously. I mean, seriously. And think of it this way. So a serial killer is someone who kills a bunch of people in order, but not endorsed or not, not at the behest of a nation state. So how is it different than a soldier? And I was a soldier. How is it? And the difference is the lens and the frame in which we look at things. Yeah, that's a very complex question, Jeff, and I think it really tugs at the loose threads that hold us together as a society, right?
Yeah, so it's quite possible that person who commits one murder could very well be capable of committing other murders. They might have psychopathic tendencies or sociopathic tendencies.
Or they might not.
You're saying?
Or they might not. I mean,
that's just scary as hell, and so I don't want to accept that as
right.
The answer.
So let's not pull at that thread. Let's talk about Silence of the Lambs.
Let's do it. Okay. One of the first things I wanted to talk about were the levels that they take to keep these guys imprisoned. Is that portrayal of them essentially down in this dungeon, him behind the glass case? What does life actually look like for serial killers? Was that portrayal correct?
No, totally Hollywoodized. I mean, it was a dungeon. Does make you wonder what the other guys like Miggs and them did to get put in the same area as Dr. Lecter. So no, I mean, prisoners have rights. Even imprisoned serial killers have rights. They have rights to go outside. So no, a lot of that was Hollywoodized. That being said, if somebody has done such things while incarcerated, as they say Dr. Lecter did, right, with attacking somebody who was there to help them, they will be extraordinarily cautious with giving them freedom of movement, freedom of limbs, things like that, for sure.
What about the when they were moving him and they had him in the straitjacket, they had him in the face protector? I mean, that wasn't a thing that we thought about before this movie, and this movie sort of created that in Hollywood, where you saw it in Con Air, where Steve Buscemi's character was like locked up even more than Hannibal Lecter was. It sort of like spawned a really bad guy in a movie is, what's the extent that we lock him up? Like, do those things exist?
Well, now we should do a whole episode on the portrayal and the use of the straitjacket. The use of the straitjacket in cinema. Straitjackets are completely, I mean, they're out. They're, we could also do a whole episode on a whole bunch of the things that psychiatry did that we know now was really, really damaging. And that will be one of them. Sure. So no, those kind of things are way out. So that was all Hollywoodized, and that mask that they put him in is absolutely great cinema.
Right.
Not at all correct medicine.
Fair enough. How do you when you're doing a prisoner transfer then, how do you keep the people safe?
Well, I mean, 2 or 3 guys holding somebody is going to be able to keep them from eating somebody. I mean, it's like the great
man. Anthony Hopkins has some big chompers.
It's a great scene when he escapes from that jail cell that they put up in the middle of a ballroom. I never really understood that. Was that was awesome. I believe that was the same ballroom that Dr. Richard Kimball may have confronted in the future.
Probably is.
But that was a bonkers setup. A great scene, but totally unrealistic. But how he overpowered those 2 guys, I mean, that's not going to happen. That's mostly unrealistic.
Yeah, I did, just going back to that first time we meet Hannibal Lecter, it's such good storytelling, how they separate him from the other crazies. They're all in shadow, talking to themselves and all these things, and then we get to the end of the line, and it's well lit. Anthony Hopkins just standing there, a very clear
Morning.
So good.
So that first scene, and of course I don't think I've seen Silence of the Lambs in 10 years, and I certainly haven't watched it from a psychiatric perspective. That scene right there for me sets up what is the overarching theme of the movie, which is we're dealing with a whole bunch of narcissists. And Dr. Lecter is the narcissist of the narcissists. And a narcissist, we all have some narcissists. That's got to
make him feel pretty good.
Narcissism is
number one narcissist.
Right, yes, go me. Narcissism is healthy in some extent. It's self-love. But it's actually a personality disorder in psychiatry. If it's too far gone, if it's too far... enhanced, it actually starts to look just like antisocial personality disorders. So sociopaths are, by definition, have some narcissism. They are so amazing, they can do whatever they want. So it's very clear to see that Lecter is a narcissist. Very clear to see that. But I will tell you, so is Clarice Starling.
Interesting.
And here's why. So that very first scene, this is so fantastic. She goes right in and introduces herself to him, and and he picks out that she's a trainee, and then she immediately does what you're supposed to do when you're dealing with a true narcissist. She leans into the narcissism. Oh, I'm here to learn from you. But what's great is he calls her right out. He catches it and just says, "Oh, you're gonna do that." I mean, it's fabulous. I mean, it is fabulous, and they had wonderful advisors on how to portray narcissism.
Yeah, that's well said. And yeah, I mean, any time in a movie when the protagonist and antagonist can be flip sides of the same coin, you know you're on the right track.
Yep, that's what they are.
Nailing the theme. And I love, not to get too far into the movie, but the second time that she meets him, he says something crass, and her response is, "That doesn't interest me. It's the sort of thing Miggs would say." And she's honestly calling him out. Like they now have that rapport. She gets the gig, and it's like it's okay to say that. In fact, it's going to make him like her more to say things like that, and it's honest.
Sure.
I love that.
But he does one up her immediately. Say, well, that's something Miggs would say. Not anymore, because he had talked Miggs into eating his own tongue and killing himself, which is
Can people do that? Is that a thing?
Eat their own tongue?
Do you buy that do you buy that could have been possible? That felt entirely Hollywood.
You know what? I do. So here's the thing that really struck me, being a psychiatrist, and Dr. Lecter is the evil psychiatrist, which is a trope that Hollywood likes to go to.
Sure.
He in his first or second interaction with Clarice, just dressed her down and picked up all these, things like her accent and tore her apart and tore her down. That is something that is very basic, rudimentary psychiatric observations. We don't tear people down. We're held by the Hippocratic Oath. We're nice people. We don't do that. But that wasn't special because Hannibal Lecter is brilliant or a brilliant psychiatrist.
Right.
That's knowledge that really any psychiatrist would have. We just would never, ever, ever use it that way.
Yeah.
So when you ask about Miggs, could he talk? If Miggs was, Miggs was, we don't know what Miggs' deal was, but he wasn't normal, whatever the hell that means. Could he have talked and manipulated Miggs into that? I kind of buy it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's great because I was expecting that to be a no. That's Hollywood answer. So that's hot tent right there. Okay. One of the I know it's my fetch. I'm gonna make it happen. One of the things she says when she's talking to the Powell character, her boss, he's testing her knowledge, and she says most serial killers keep a trophy. Is that true or not? Because that's a very Hollywood.
A lot of them do. A lot of them do. Again, and this is based on studies of serial killers, and another really, really great Hollywood production that we should think about doing is Dissecting Mindhunters, which is about the formation of the FBI's behavioral division, based on a true story. Fabulous. Yeah, a lot of them do keep trophies. Which is very interesting. Yeah. You once told me that the scary part about serial killers or psychopaths is that they don't necessarily have a pattern, and a lot of them are just out there killing, and they're very hard to catch. Yeah, I think, and that's what the FBI estimates say, that there's more serial killers at work at any one time than we have any knowledge of, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Our country is built up of 50 states. There's numerous jurisdictions within each state. It's difficult to share information. Look at how hard it was back then. Another thing that I picked up is this was all pre-internet in the Silence of the Lambs. And wow, how much more difficult must it have been to try to put together things across state lines. Pre-cell phone. You want to check in, you got to borrow somebody's. Right? Can I borrow your phone? Yeah. Yeah. She gets that call at the end, and she's got to go to a phone on the wall. yeah. Anyways, where do you want to go? Because I've got so many things to talk about of this.
Well, you can just jump in and talk about anything you want. Where I was going to go was the scene where Buffalo Bill kidnaps the girl. But we've come so far as a society from, sure, I'll get in that van. You know, like, I'm watching her do that, and I'm like, this probably made sense to an audience back in the day of Silence of the Lambs. There's no way in hell we would accept that now, but people probably did that. They were a lot more trusting back then. But it's like,
well, sure,
I'm a woman. I'll get.
She hadn't seen Silence of the Lambs to know that you don't get into the truck.
That's what I'm saying. But it's like, in that moment, I was like, she's such a. She probably, people were a lot more trusting back then.
The Buffalo Bill character, and this was, the Buffalo Bill character is fascinating. One of the things going into it, watching it this time, I was thinking, this is one of those movies that demonizes transgender individuals.
Right.
He's not transgender. He hates himself so much that he thinks he is, because that's the next. And Hannibal Lecter also said he's probably tried to be many different things. Again, if you want to see it, helps to not demonize transgender individuals who by no means are predisposed to this kind of behavior.
Actually, speaking of just helping to push societal norms in a better way, there's like two moments that Clarice Starling has with her boss, where she says or he says to her, like, it really burned you that I kept you out of that. And she's like, it did, but it's because guys look to you how to act, and you shouldn't do things like that. And he was like, point taken.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
The rampant pervasive sexism throughout the movie was really interesting to me. I knew that it was there. I remembered it was there.
Right.
But at that time, I wonder if was that Jonathan Demme, the director, was that his? Was he trying to criticize that? It
I
seems
think
like
so.
it.
It
seems like
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, because
it
was very.
It's a character.
Apparent.
It's a character unto itself.
Yeah, it wasn't accidental sexism the way that you go back and watch The West Wing, and there's a lot of sexism in there that I don't think Sorkin knew he was. I don't think he knew it was sexist. I think he was pointing out the FBI is sexist, and she's doing incredibly well despite the sexism, and overcoming it.
Yeah.
Also, this movie barely passes the Bechdel test, even though that has a female main character, because there's a couple scenes where she's talking with her roommate or friend at the academy, and it's the two of them talking that leads her, to remember the thing that Hannibal Lecter said about coveting.
Although I actually think I would argue that doesn't pass the Bechdel test because they're talking about a man, one of the other male characters. Yeah. So
fair enough.
But I want to get back to the narcissism thing, because I think that this really this opened my eyes to new meanings of the whole theme of the movie. So clearly Lecter's a narcissist. Clearly Buffalo Bill is. He does not. He looks at other people as objects. He's a sociopath. He's the most important thing. As I would
doesn't
say,
refer to the girl as a her. It's like it
puts the lotion in the basket.
It puts the lotion in the basket.
And I've already tipped my hand. I think that Clarice Starling, also narcissistic. Just happens to be in a pro-social way. I mean, she's just like, I'm great. I'm going to do this. I can do this. And she had no problem lying to Hannibal Lecter because he's a bad guy and it's for the greater good, right? I mean, she lied to him, and she had no problem doing that. The other narcissist in here of the quartet is Scott Glenn's character. He's her boss. He had no problem lying to her too, for the greater good. But that's a very narcissistic tendency. And I think, and this blew me away when I was able to put this together. The Silence of the Lambs, that's the name of the movie. Why? Because it's her trying to silence the lambs.
What did you see?
lambs. They were screaming.
I mean, that whole thing when I was younger didn't make a lot of sense. But I think
Did it
what
make
they're
sense this time?
it did, because I think what they're
Okay.
talking about, the rest of the world are the lambs being slaughtered. They're the
Right.
special people, Clarice, Dr. Lecter, because they see things more than everybody else, and Clarice has to protect the lambs from the slaughter, and that really got me this time.
Yeah,
'Cause
it's
their
the
narcissism. They're the
protectors.
the Ubermenches, quite honestly.
Right. Yeah, and it's the to take that like to another step of she's so sure that Lecter won't come after her.
Right. Right.
And the
How narcissistic
right.
is that?
how
But that's
narcissistic
very
is that? But
narcissistic.
she's also right. And in thinking about why he likes that he says it, he likes that she's in the world. And I think that's really interesting. It's like a narcissist nodding to another narcissist. You want to save everyone. I want to kill everyone. It's very Joker Batman.
I don't want to kill you. What would I do without you?
Well, also two extreme narcissists.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was great. It's funny. In going into the movie, I was like, I can't remember what Silence of the Lambs meant, and this time it really hit it on the head with It was the one lamb. She tried to save the one lamb. She couldn't do it, and so now this girl is the lamb, and there will always be another lamb. There will always be another person
because they're all
to
lambs.
save.
They're all
That's right.
lambs.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting. I don't know that I would have caught the narcissism as well as you did. So that's excellent to point that out.
Well, thank you for feeding my narcissism about how amazing that was.
100%. One of the things I loved about this movie, and this has nothing to do with mental health really, but it was the details. Like when people are making movies these days, I miss the day when there were such an attention to detail like there was in this movie. And sometimes there is, and I think that's what makes it a tremendous film. But like the attention to detail in this was so great. And I'm thinking specifically about when they put the stuff under their nose.
Right.
Yeah, the menthol.
And the two characters had done it so many times that they were just like, yep, here's the thing. And then she's doing it for the first time, and we're seeing that it's clearly her first time. But I've never seen that in another movie. And bodies are smelly. So yes, that's something that people would do. And it's that attention to detail is so rich in this movie, like just continually throughout the movie.
Yes, you're right, Grandpa. Things were made better back then.
Back in my day.
No, but it was pretty great. Even to one detail that I picked up was, Clarice and her friend were obsessing over the map of the Midwest or the Mid-Atlantic and where all the dots were. And then when she's in his house, he has a map on the wall of the Mid-Atlantic. There's just, it's great stuff. And the fingernail that was left in the bloody claw print in the wall. It was great.
Yeah.
Another thing I had
said,
forgotten. I forgot she didn't kill Precious. I forgot that she walked out with Precious.
I didn't even catch that. I didn't see that.
Which is a very, very interesting trauma response.
Sure. Yeah, we're talking about the dog.
The dog,
Buffalo
the
Bill's
little
dog.
yipper dog, yeah.
Yeah, and it's so funny. Everybody talks about how amazing Anthony Hopkins was in that movie, but man, Buffalo Bill.
What's the problem, officer?
Like he did such a great job. I remember watching Fast and the Furious, and he was the boss, and I was like, "Don't trust him! Don't trust him! That motherfucker is
isn't
evil."
he? Yeah.
And he's been in a ton of things since, but he just was incredible.
Yeah. When I was in residency in at the University of Vermont, this was back in the 90s. you still had to look at X-rays on actual films, and so you'd go down to the X-ray room and you'd pick up the X-rays and you'd look at them and then you put them back. The guy, if you're out there, I'm sorry for sharing this. The guy who manned the X-ray booth overnight, we all called Buffalo Bill because he was just, kind of a creepy guy. And when you bring the X-rays back, he would say, "Put the X-rays in the basket," and it was just so creepy.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
All right, so one of the one of the scenes everybody talks about in Silence of the Lambs is tucking the dick. How many times have you done that?
I mean, not zero. Yeah, it's not zero.
Definitely more than zero.
You can accidentally have it tucked, and then you go, "Hey, wait a minute, that's kind of weird." Yeah, one of the biggest stigmas in our society that we really haven't, kind of tackled yet is stigma around psychosexual development. So I don't think there's probably any boy who hasn't tucked it back and said, "Oh, this is what I would look like if I was a girl." That's pretty normal. I mean, it's nothing, and it's super shameful. Of course, but it shouldn't be. And
I mean, I guess, man, I haven't done it today.
Oh, you should totally do it. Yeah. So again, I mean, we've got to tackle these stigmas about mental health. We've got to tackle stigmas around psychosexual development. It probably having some of this stuff so taboo probably encourages maladaptive sexual behavior that might lead towards people acting out sexuality in really maladaptive ways. So now, I'm not saying if we talked about that it's okay to tuck your dick behind your legs that we would stop serial killers, right. But I don't know that it's gonna hurt.
But it can't hurt. It can't hurt. All right, so everybody tuck your wangs tonight. It's if you're listening to this, go ahead, give it a little tuck. Yeah. So this is back to a film thing, but the scene at the end where she's in the dark and he's watching her through the lens, and it's not even when he almost touches her, although that is really creepy. It's her not seeing the things that she trips over and feeling for the wall. It was so interesting to see. It was fascinating, and I haven't seen that shot since. I haven't seen someone do that. It was so unique and so creepy in such a unique way, and the ends of movies are often shot very similarly. And I just want to give credit to the filmmaker for the through the lens, through the night vision goggles scene. That was incredible.
Do you think they filmed that with Jodie Foster in Pitch Black?
I don't know. That's a great question.
If not, that's fabulous.
That's a great
acting.
question.
I liked that scene too, but for a different reason, because I thought it really cinched together how narcissistic Buffalo Bill was.
Buffalo Bill.
Because what he should have done is just kill her.
Right.
But he didn't, because he's on a mission. He is better than all of you, all of her. And he can toy with her, and it's going to be okay. He's still going to come out on top. And he was wrong, but that's the level of narcissism.
Yeah. Here's my two criticisms. Here's my two criticisms of the movie. There's no way he can get that pen. The pen that he uses to unlock. He's totally strapped in the pen.
Hannibal Lecter was in strapped in his.
Yeah, he was strapped into a set, and there's a pen. He can't get free
Dr.
to get
Chilton.
that pen.
We haven't talked about how terrible a character Dr. Chilton was.
My name is Dr. Frederick Chilton. How do you spell that? C-H.
He put down the pen.
Is it wrong that I wanted him to get eaten at the end?
No, you're supposed to.
I'm having a friend for dinner.
You're supposed to. But
right.
You're right. He could not have gotten the pen. Agree.
Right. Yeah. The other one is, and this isn't, this is just movies of the time. The fake blood is so bad. It's so bad. We have such good fake blood now. And it was like, oh, yeah, no, this is an old movie. This is definitely an old movie. But that's it. Those are my only two criticisms of this. Yeah, you want to mention anything last thing about Chilton? Because also a narcissist. 100% a narcissist.
Yeah, but a dumb, bad narcissist. I didn't like the character, the Chilton character. He's the psychiatrist who is trying to match wits and very much overmatched with Dr. Chilton. He was with Lecter. He was a petty tyrant, but not a completely unbelievable character. I mean, there's a lot. History is replete with petty, tyrannical psychiatrists who ran asylums, and we can talk about some of those.
Yeah, and we often think about like character development in film, and it's it's always more interesting film to have really rich, full, developed characters. But there are just people who are very basic, and he was a basic narcissist that was easily manipulated by other narcissists. So he was what he needed to be for that movie. Great. This has been awesome. What do you want to do next week? We've talked about Whiplash. We've talked about Saltburn.
Let's surprise people because I think we might pull an audible. Let's maybe we don't. We're gonna do Saltburn. We're gonna do Whiplash. So listeners, watch those movies. Fresh to refresh.
Cool. You're going to need a lesson about call to action after this is over, but we'll talk. We'll talk in the post game.
I will definitely need. I don't know what that is.
about
call to action.
That. Okay.
All right.
Well, that's
okay. So
that's
you want me to name one? Let's do Whiplash. We're doing Whiplash next time.
Ooh, I'm so excited.
There's your call to action.
I have so much to say about mentorism and sports and the coaches that you and I have had. I'm super excited to talk about Whiplash. Okay.
All right. Well, here's my. I'm going to give you my final thoughts on Silence of the Lambs.
Okay. Final thoughts. My apologies.
No, we this is our second episode. We're fumbling.
Second episode.
Through it.
Welcome back to Cinemental.
Silence of the Lambs' overarching theme is about narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder. Even though the two serial killers are definitely psychopaths, narcissism is the overarching psychiatric and psychological theme of Silence of the Lambs.
Cool. Well said. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to do Whiplash next week. Do all the things, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the like, subscribe button, notification bell thing, do all the stuff, and watch Whiplash, and we're going to talk about it next week. So for Josh Jones, I'm Jeff Jones, and that's it.
And folks, don't forget, if you or someone you know is suicidal or experiencing a severe mental health crisis, call or text the National Suicide Crisis Lifeline number at 988.
All right, guys, that's it for us. We'll see you next week.